"Hey, mister, can you help us, please?" called the young girl from across the park on a sunny Saturday morning, gesturing toward a frisbee lying nearby. Glancing up, I spotted the frisbee and the two girls about 15 yards away. Without hesitation, I retrieved the disc, stood up, and swiftly tossed it back to the girl who had called out to me. "Wow. That's pretty impressive for an old guy," the girl quipped. "Old guy?" I echoed, raising an eyebrow. Though I knew she was a young girl, being referred to as old at 44 caught me off guard. Did I really look that aged? Seeing my reaction, the girl attempted to soften the blow with a smile. "Well, not too old for someone's grandpa," she added, nodding toward her friend who also smiled in my direction. "Someone's grandpa? Throw me the frisbee back. I'll show you just how spry us old folks can be," I responded with enthusiasm, feeling a surge of competitiveness. The girl tossed the frisbee to me, and I caught it behind my back with my right hand before swiftly sending it with a sidearm throw to her friend. "Wow. That was really cool. Can you do it again?" the first girl exclaimed. Signaling for the frisbee to be thrown back to me, I caught it through my legs this time. Straightening up, I demonstrated a trick throw called a hovercraft to the girls, sending the frisbee in a unique trajectory that amazed them. "Not bad for an old guy, huh? Do you want to learn some frisbee tricks?" I offered. Both girls eagerly agreed and approached me, transforming me from an old guy to the Pied Piper in a matter of moments. Taking a knee, I spent a couple of minutes explaining and demonstrating different grips and throwing techniques. We then practiced throwing for about 10 minutes, during which I showed off a few catches between my legs and behind my back, impressing the girls. "Can you teach us those moves too?" asked the first girl, a blonde with freckles. "I can, but first let's focus on mastering the basics." "You'll get there with practice," I replied, encouraging them to improve their catching skills before attempting more advanced tricks. We spent several minutes focusing on improving their catching skills, much like I used to do when coaching Little League Baseball years ago. I emphasized the importance of keeping their eyes on the frisbee until it landed securely in their hands. As they became more successful at catching, the game became even more enjoyable. After about 20 minutes of playing, the girls grew restless and expressed their desire to go on the swings. Understanding that swinging was a typical activity for 7-year-olds, I didn't take offense. "Thank you, mister. We're going to go swing now," said the second girl. "Do you come here often? Will you be here next week?" Although I couldn't predict my plans for the following week, as I rarely made any, I assured them that I would return to teach them some fancy catches. They thanked me and ran off to the swings. Smiling to myself, I headed back to my apartment. Coaching kids had always brought me joy, and it had been a while since I'd made new friends, regardless of their age. The following Saturday, I was back on the bench when Angel and Jackie returned for another round of frisbee. This time, I had opted for athletic shorts and a t-shirt, hoping to appear more youthful to them. We continued to work on catching, and once I was satisfied with their progress, we moved on to practicing some more advanced catches. They found these tricks more challenging but remained in good spirits, laughing and giggling throughout. After playing for about 45 minutes, they bid me farewell and headed off to the swings, asking if I would return the next Saturday. I wasn't surprised when an adult accompanied the girls the following Saturday. If my own daughter had been meeting an old guy in the park regularly, I would have done the same. Approaching me directly, the woman introduced herself as Maddie Weber, Angel's mother. With her blonde hair tied up in a high ponytail and a slender frame, she appeared to be in her early 30s, around 5 feet 4 inches or 5 feet 5 inches. I discreetly observed her as she approached. "I'm Maddie. Madison Weber. I'm Angel's mom," she said, extending her hand. "I just wanted to meet the frisbee guy the girls have been talking about." "Rob Drake, frisbee guy, at your service," I replied with a hint of humor, shaking her hand and meeting her bright blue eyes. I'm actually relieved that a parent has come to check in, being a parent of 2 children myself. I noticed her glance at my left hand, likely searching for a wedding ring, but finding none. "Are your kids here in the park?" she asked, trying to be discreet. "My kids are 19 and 17 now," I replied. One's in college, and the other is a high school senior. The younger one lives with her mother. She seemed to relax a bit, reassured by my response. Well, I'll leave you to your fun then. Nice to meet you, frisbee guy, she said as she turned to walk off. What, you're not staying to play? I can teach anyone to play frisbee, I said hopefully, noticing she wasn't wearing a wedding ring either. Admittedly, it wasn't the most impressive line. I hadn't been practicing my flirting skills much since my divorce 2 years ago. She gave me a crooked grin that practically screamed lame, but then she stopped and turned around. I'm pretty sure you can't teach me. I don't have an athletic bone in my body, she said, with her daughter chiming in to agree. Nobody's going to confuse Mom with Mike Trout, Angel giggled. As we stayed close together, I gave Maddie some frisbee basics. Then we split apart and played catch for about 5 minutes. Well, 3 of us played catch, one of us was pathetic. When Maddie split a fingernail, she called it quits for the day. Damn, I just got my nails done Thursday, Maddie whined. Oh please, Mom. The park is a no-whining zone, Angel teased. Little Weisenheimer, Maddie chuckled. You guys keep going. I'm going home to fix this nail. She nodded at me before leaving. I was speechless, kicking myself for not doing better with a seemingly single woman. The girls and I played frisbee for about 45 minutes. I managed to play and mentally berate myself for my lack of game. As I walked back home, I continued to lament my lack of dating skills. I wouldn't even need them if my wife of 19 years hadn't cheated on me 3 years ago, leading to our divorce. Since then, I hadn't been on a single date. When I married Tracy Wilkins after our time at Michigan State, I never thought I'd be dating again. We had what I thought was a perfect marriage, with 2 daughters. Tracy was stunning with her auburn hair, green eyes, and, to be frank, a well-endowed figure that hadn't lost its allure even after nursing 2 children. There were moments over our 21 years together when I wondered how I landed someone as beautiful as her. We met in a marketing class, and despite the initial awe from the guys in the room, she managed to be friendly with everyone, even navigating the tricky waters of female relationships. We hit it off and were married shortly after graduation. Our marriage wasn't flawless, but it felt pretty close to it. That's why I didn't think twice when Tracy mentioned attending a concert with her coworker Carol, until everything changed that night. I had been aware of Tracy and Carol's plans to attend the seminar for weeks, but the news about the concert was new to me. Being no stranger to how quickly tickets for such popular events sell out, I knew they must have been purchased well in advance, despite Tracy only mentioning it a month before the trip. While I was curious, my daughters were consumed with jealousy. Nelson Rollo, a 25-year-old former rapper turned model, was now making waves in the music industry and was often compared to Mark Wahlberg. His physique, particularly his six-pack abs and biceps, was widely known as he seldom performed with a shirt on. Mom, why couldn't you get 4 tickets so Haley and I could go? Becca complained. It's a work trip, dear. I can't bring you along just to sit in the hotel room before the concert. Carol and I will be flying back early Saturday morning, Tracy explained. Since when are you such a big fan of this rapper? I asked. I've been following him for a while, she replied, avoiding eye contact. Trusting as ever, I didn't dwell on it. Tracy had never given me a reason to doubt her. Our routine was unchanged. Tracy called home Wednesday and Thursday evenings to discuss the seminar. On Thursday, as we wrapped up our conversation, I reminded her to be careful at the concert on Friday night, which was my way of telling her to be mindful of her interactions since I wouldn't be there to watch over her. Oh, come on, Rob. There will be thousands of young women at the concert. Nobody will notice Carol or me, Tracy reassured. I'm not worried about Carol, but you, on the other hand, are a different story. Anyone with functioning eyes will give you a second and probably a third glance, I replied. I would never betray your trust, Rob, she insisted. I know, but it still makes me uneasy when I'm not with you, I admitted. On a Saturday morning at 6:15, my phone rang, startling me awake. Assuming it was an emergency, I answered with a hint of irritation, only to hear my best friend Carl's voice on the other end. Maddie returned to the park the following Saturday, seemingly just to observe Angel, Jackie, and me playing frisbee. She brought a travel mug of coffee and sat on a bench, watching us until the girls left for the swings. I joined her on the bench, and Maddie initiated the conversation, perhaps to divert my thoughts. "You must live nearby if you come here often," she remarked. "Yeah, I'm about a half-mile to the west," I replied, indicating the direction of my apartment. "We're about a half-mile to the east," she said, pointing in the opposite direction. "We're practically neighbors. It's funny how we wouldn't have met if not for the girls playing frisbee. Life's random, isn't it?" "I used to ponder a lot about life's randomness," I said. "Not so much anymore. Not since." "I understand. Feeling numb. It fades eventually, you know." "I felt numb for about a year and a half," she shared. "Your ex cheated on you?" I asked, surprised. "Not that I know of," Maddie replied. "I was numb after he died in a car truck accident. He was an alcoholic. Drove his car under the wheels of a semi while drunk." "I'm sorry. How long ago was that?" I inquired. 5 years ago. Angel was 2, just a baby," she said. "So she never really knew her father, although looking back, maybe that was for the best." I furrowed my brows in concern. Maddie avoided my gaze, appearing uneasy. After a moment of contemplation, she exhaled deeply. "You know, when you were young and party almost every weekend. That's what Avery, my late husband, that's what we did in college." And he continued afterward, despite needing to save up for a house and kids. I tried to get him to stop, but he couldn't give up drinking. Binge drinking, they call it. He didn't drink much during the week, or so I thought. When I got pregnant, I quit drinking and stopped going to most parties. But he still went, even when I couldn't. After Angel was born, I stayed home to care for her, and he resumed partying. Friends said he wasn't cheating, but he was still drinking heavily and occasionally using drugs. Then one night, he didn't come home, Maddie recounted, her voice wavering. She sniffled, trying to hold back tears, but the emotion was evident in her eyes. "I'm sorry. You're the first person outside of family and friends I've confided in. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's a part of who we are," Angel and I, Maddie shared. "She seems like a great kid. So does the other one, Jackie. Not as outgoing, but they both seem nice," I remarked. "Jackie's a neighbor kid. She lives a couple of doors down from us. Nice parents. Her father, Mike, occasionally helps me out with small fix-it jobs," Maddie explained. "You know, you're not nearly as old as Angel made you out to be," she continued. "The way she described you, I thought for sure you had to be 55 or 60. Maybe a senior citizen. You're what? 45 at most?" "Almost on the money," I replied. "But I guess to a 7-year-old, anyone older than her mother would be old DDD, with 3 or 4 DS. We both chuckled at that moment, sharing a glance. It was now or never. Shit, I muttered, frustrated with myself. I noticed a hint of pity in her eyes. "Damn it." "Yes. I'll go out with you," she said, grinning. You will?" "How did you know?" I stumbled. "Women's intuition," she said brightly. Relief flooded through me, and I laughed as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I couldn't even ask you last time," I admitted. She laughed heartily, her laughter almost musical. "You couldn't even ask this time, but at least you gave me a hint," she teased. "Yeah," I confessed sheepishly. "So, when and where?" she inquired confidently. "Surely that's the part of this conversation you had down pat. How about next Saturday night? There's a nice little French restaurant on the south side of the city. Kind of upscale," I suggested. "What's your address?" "I'll pick you up at 6, unless of course you'd prefer to meet me here in the park." Untrustworthy character that I am, I joked. She returned my grin and provided her address. The following Saturday morning, after our usual frisbee session with Angel and Jackie, the girls approached me before heading to the swings. "So, you and my mom, huh?" Angel asked. "She hasn't had too many dates since my dad died. You'd better be real nice to her, you know." "I promise, Angel. I'll be super nice, okay?" I assured her, trying to suppress my laughter. "None of that kissy stuff," Jackie chimed in, prompting giggles from both girls. "My parents do that all the time." "I don't think you guys have to worry about that," I said, inwardly hoping maybe I was wrong. I could have just honked my horn in the driveway, like my daughter's boyfriends attempted to do, but I knew better. So, I got out of my car and walked up to Maddie's door. As expected, Angel answered. "Wow. You look really different from this morning," Angel exclaimed. We chatted for a few minutes before Maddie entered the room, dressed in a dark blue dress that revealed a hint of cleavage and reached mid-thigh. She had applied some makeup and lipstick. She cleaned up nicely. As I pulled out of her driveway, Maddie broke the silence. "So, I hear from my daughter that you're not a fan of kissing girls," she remarked. "Is there something I should know?" I nearly choked while driving, taking a moment to compose myself. That's not exactly what I said. The girls warned me not to attempt any of that kissy stuff with you, as Jackie's parents apparently do it all the time, and it's you, I explained. Maddie burst into laughter. "I can't wait to tell Marty and Grace. They'll find it hilarious," she chuckled. "So, you're not opposed to that kissy stuff then?" "Not at all," I assured her. Entering the restaurant for the first time in nearly 3 years felt like stepping into a time machine. After holding the door open for Maddie, I followed her in but stopped abruptly. Maddie noticed and turned around. "We don't have to do this, Rob," she said softly. I shook my head to clear my thoughts. "No, I'm fine, Maddie. It's time for me to let go of the past, all of it," I replied. Henri, the maitre d', greeted me warmly and politely asked me to introduce him to my date when we were seated. I noticed a couple of acquaintances I hadn't seen in a while, both nodding politely at me. Maddie observed that I wasn't a stranger here. During our meal, Maddie seemed increasingly uncomfortable. I knew the inevitable conversation was approaching, and I dreaded having to explain it to her. "Is my dress unzipped or something, Rob? Everyone keeps glancing over here," she whispered as she leaned forward. "You really don't know, do you?" I responded, internally cursing. The girls would be awake soon, and I couldn't shield them from what was about to happen. Plus, I had to pick up Tracy from the airport at noon without losing my cool. Sitting in the kitchen with my coffee, I pondered whether I could get away with murder if I lived in Texas. Texas juries seemed more reasonable than those in other states. Glancing at the photos on my computer, I cursed again. They were still there. I heard movement upstairs, followed by a piercing scream that could have been heard 2 states over. The girls' cries echoed down the stairs as they rushed into the kitchen. "Oh my God, Dad, did you see?" Haley screamed, skidding to a halt as she caught sight of my face. Becca collided with her as she stopped abruptly. Both girls burst into tears and sought solace on my shoulders. I couldn't help but join them. "What are we going to do, Dad?" Becca eventually asked. I mustered up my sincerest expression, despite feeling my heart shatter. "Well, first and foremost, you two need to continue loving her," I said softly. "She loves you, and you love her, despite the mistakes she's made. She's going to need that love more than ever now. As for me, I'm not sure I can remain married to her." Both girls gasped. "We understand, Dad." "Really, we do," Haley said. "But can't you give her another chance? Doesn't everyone deserve forgiveness for one mistake?" "Under different circumstances, I might agree, Hales. But this is serious. She broke our vows, and she broke my heart. I'll never be able to trust her again," I confessed. "Those photos are awful, Dad. I never imagined Mom would betray you like this," Haley said. "Do you know he's closer to our age than Mom's?" Becca added. "That's something to consider," I murmured, struck by the realization. Would it help if we went to the airport with you when you pick her up? Becca asked. No, thank you for offering, Beck. I'll handle it myself, and I promise not to cause any harm, at least not physically, I reassured them. You do realize we're going to face a lot of backlash at school for the next few weeks, Haley pointed out. Yeah, unfortunately you're probably right, I conceded. I wish I had a better answer for that. Hopefully, the photos being on an X-rated site will limit who sees them. But the whole situation with Nelson, his wife, and Mom is all over Facebook, Insta, and everywhere, Becca added. Tracy looked shocked when she spotted me at the airport, but she quickly averted her gaze. She approached as if to greet me with a kiss, but my expression stopped her in her tracks. I'm so sorry, Rob, she whispered. Sorry for cheating, sorry for hurting me, or sorry for getting caught looking like the world's biggest whore. I whispered back. Her eyes darted up briefly before dropping again. She didn't answer, but handed me her bag, and we left. I noticed people in the crowd giving Tracy harsh looks and taking photos with their phones. It had begun. I don't know what to say, she finally admitted as we drove away. I know what you saw looks terrible, but you're hardly a nobody, especially not to me. You meant everything to me. You didn't need to attract a celebrity to prove your worth to me. I've always known how special you are. Am I invisible? I expressed. Maddie sat in stunned silence as I recounted my story. Seriously, she almost whispered. Yes, seriously, I affirmed. I find it hard to believe you haven't heard about this before. I thought everyone in town knew. A local woman sleeps with a famous singer, leading to the breakup of his marriage with a well-known actress. Tell me I've met the only person in town who's not glued to social media, or whatever it is these days. I'm a single mother with a young child. Who has time for social media? I couldn't care less about politicians and actors. When I have free time, I prefer watching sports or reading historical nonfiction, Maddie explained. So that's why you think people are giving us sneaky looks, because they are. They're staring at me with a mix of pity and scorn, and trying to figure out who would be foolish enough to be with someone like me, I admitted quietly. It sounds like you're paying for your ex-wife's mistakes, she observed. What do your daughters think about all of this? At first, they were shocked by what my wife did, but over time she managed to convince them that she was entitled to her actions, her hall pass, and that I was just being narrow-minded and egotistical. I think she kept telling them that I was responsible for breaking up the family so much that they started to believe it. My relationship with my daughters is strained, to say the least, I explained. She cheated, yet I'm the one they're angry with. I must admit, I don't fully understand the female perspective. Heck, I'm not sure I understand it at all. You seem to understand Angel and Jackie quite well, frisbee guy, Maddie chuckled. We enjoyed a pleasant dinner. It was probably the best date I've had since the divorce. In fact, it was the only one. Tracy's company actually attempted to terminate her employment after her photos went viral, citing behavior detrimental to the company's reputation. She was furious when I returned home from work later that day. I spoke with Leon Stang on my way home from the office. He's confident I'll have my job back by tomorrow evening, or else those jerks will be facing a hefty wrongful termination lawsuit, she informed me after being escorted out of her office by security. They didn't fire our COO when he had an affair. Why should they fire me? She fumed. Because his intimate photos didn't end up plastered all over the internet for the world to see, I replied calmly before heading upstairs to change. No, they fired me because I'm a woman, she shouted after me. What happened to standing by your wife? What happened to staying faithful to your husband? I called down the stairs. It seemed like Tracy's company board was swayed by her argument because her lawyer managed to get her rehired by lunchtime the next day. When I returned home from work, she was strutting around the kitchen, regaling the girls with her tale of triumph. I made a mistake. Everyone gets one mistake. But you can't let people push you down when you're down, she boasted. I stayed silent, shaking my head in disbelief, and headed upstairs to change. Since Tracy's return, I had been sleeping in the guest room. We hadn't spoken about it for a whole week. I think she was hoping I'd eventually give in and sweep it under the rug if I didn't bring it up. I was hoping she'd show some genuine remorse and maybe give me a reason not to file for divorce. Instead, she seemed oddly comfortable with her actions. That comfort ended that evening. After dinner, I gave the girls some money and told them to go enjoy a movie while Tracy and I attempted to address our issues. They both understood and left without hesitation. A few minutes later, I entered the family room where Tracy was engrossed in something on TV and switched it off. "We need to talk about this, right?" she sighed. "Wait. You cheat on me, humiliate me in front of the entire country, and destroy some guy's marriage, but you think you have the right to be upset?" I exploded. "I made a mistake. I apologized. I can't undo what happened. What more do you want from me, a public flogging?" she retorted. "I'm not going to spend my life apologizing and hiding. I have a life to live. If people have a problem with that, they can keep their distance." I took a chance at a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I had an incredible night of passion. If his wife hadn't walked in, you and everyone else would be none the wiser. I'm not planning to date him or become his next wife. It was a one-time thing. "Let it go," she pleaded. "What about the fact that my wife of 19 years completely disrespected me and our marriage vows in front of everyone? Clearly, you don't respect me." "Oh, please," she interrupted. "Your fragile ego is just hurt because your attractive wife had sex with a 25-year-old Adonis, and now everyone's talking about it. You and half the straight male population have probably fantasized about me. Get over it." I must have looked stunned with my mouth hanging open when she finished speaking. I had expected some remorse, but instead, I received a blunt blow to my ego. A week later, I had her served with divorce papers. Needless to say, it didn't go smoothly. "There won't be a divorce, Rob. Your feelings are just hurt. You love me, and I still love you. You don't want to end up alone in a tiny apartment for the rest of your life, do you?" she yelled after being served at our home. Somewhere along the line, the girls shifted from being outraged by their mother's behavior to accepting it, maybe even feeling somewhat proud of what she did. I overheard Haley on the phone telling a friend that she wished she could have been in her mother's place with Nelson. My paternal instincts took a hit. The issue was that Tracy was partly right. I still loved her, but the disrespect she showed me and the eroding trust were chipping away at that love every day. My ego took a blow the day those photos appeared online. I faced criticism and judgment daily because of those images. You learn who your true friends are in tough times. Tracy couldn't, or wouldn't, see things from my perspective. "Just because you cheated doesn't mean I have to forgive and forget," I told her during one of our many arguments before the divorce was finalized. Not entirely surprising, the girls chose to stay with their mother, so Tracy got the house until Becca went to college, after which it would be sold and the profits divided equally. The financial arrangements were straightforward. We both had good incomes, so it was a simple 50-50 split. Tracy's lawyer tried to negotiate better terms for her, but our state operates on no-fault divorce laws, and her very public affair was hard to ignore. I ended up in a small apartment, but it was by choice. I didn't need more space without the girls, with few friends left, and a limited social life. "Would you have gone out with me if you knew my story beforehand?" I asked Maddie a few weeks before our wedding 5 years ago. She squinted, contemplating her response. We agreed to always be truthful, even if the truth wasn't always pleasant. Unlike me, Maddie sometimes struggled to soften the truth. "Probably not," she admitted. "I was almost sick to my stomach when you told me your story, and I looked it up online. It seemed unsavory." I chuckled bitterly. She tried to be kind. How many people use the word unsavory, I wondered. I don't think I would have had the courage to date you knowing everyone was scrutinizing you, expecting. I'm not sure what exactly, but I remember feeling like you were being watched. "Maybe I would have been waiting for you to crack or something," she said. I was fortunate with Maddie. After I shared my situation, she researched it online. Thankfully, she trusted me enough to continue dating me, despite the negative publicity connected to my ex-wife. Of course, her 7-year-old daughter played a role. I became friends with Angel several weeks before meeting Maddie. I taught Angel and her friend, Jackie, how to throw and catch a frisbee at a local park, and Maddie, being a responsible mother, came to meet the frisbee guy her daughter and Jackie talked about. It seemed that I filled a void in Angel's life, and she certainly filled one in mine. She was part daughter, part puppy. If I was working on a small project at Maddie's house, she was my mini assistant. If I played a prank on Maddie, she was my co-conspirator. She was always by my side when I went to the fridge for a snack, and she even developed a taste for unconventional delicacies like leftover cold peas with barbecue sauce. Before I proposed to her mother, I actually asked Angel if she wanted me to be her dad. "Like you would be my real dad, and not just around sometimes?" she asked. "Your real dad, which means that if you don't listen to me, I would be the one to give you a spanking," I said, trying to look serious. "You would do that?" she asked, suddenly less sure. "If I do it to my other daughters, why wouldn't I do it to you if you were my daughter?" "I wouldn't want to treat you differently," I explained. "Well, I guess if you do it to your other daughters, then I guess I should listen, right?" "That's right," I smiled. "Now that we've settled that, let's see what your mom thinks." Soon after Maddie and I got married, I legally adopted Angel. Then, 2 years later, Mark Phillip Drake joined our family. I can't blame my older daughters for hoping their parents would reconcile, but I gently explained to them that it wasn't going to happen. Their mother had disrespected me in the worst way, and I couldn't trust her again. "She hasn't dated anyone since the divorce, Dad." "I'm pretty sure she's been asked." "Even if the guys haven't seen those photos," Becca said, blushing. "She's just waiting for you to come back." After the divorce, the girls and I weren't as close. They would visit occasionally, but rarely stayed for meals. Holidays were especially tough. The first Christmas after the divorce, Tracy bought me a gift. The girls brought it to me during our Christmas celebration. "I can't accept this, girls. We're not together, and I didn't buy her anything," I said. "I'm pretty sure she'd still want you to have it, Dad," Haley said. "Okay, tell her thanks," I said as I set it down on the counter near my kitchen table. I never opened the gift, donating it to Goodwill a few days later. The girls were initially disappointed when they found out I had a serious girlfriend 3 years later, but Maddie and Angel won them over when we all met at a restaurant. At first, Angel seemed a bit possessive of me, but by the end of the meal, she and my daughters had formed a mutual admiration society. Later, my girls told me they could see how attached Angel was to me. "Haley thinks the world of you, Dad," Haley remarked. Both girls attended my wedding to Maddie, and they were overjoyed when I officially adopted Angel. A year later, I had the honor of walking Haley down the aisle. Angel served as the flower girl, and Becca was the maid of honor. I couldn't have been prouder, especially with my new son-in-law, Evan Lewis, whom I genuinely liked. During the ceremony, I found myself seated between my ex-wife and my current wife. Surprisingly, my ex remained quiet throughout, which suited me just fine. Maddie and I spent a lot of time on the dance floor, and I danced with both Haley and Becca several times. I noticed Tracy dancing with several men, but I was too occupied to dwell on it. However, midway through the evening, Maddie approached me and asked, as a favor, if I would dance with my ex-wife. I hesitated, but Haley encouraged me, so I obliged and asked Tracy to dance. As we danced to a slow song, Tracy broke the silence. "I thought you were going to ignore me all night," she said softly. "We're the parents of the bride, after all. We should be celebrating together." She glanced up at my somber expression. Okay. You don't have to say it. I know it's my fault we're not celebrating together," she admitted. "Was it really that bad that you had to do what you did?" I asked quietly. "No, I was just foolish. I saw an opportunity and took it, thinking you'd never find out. Then his wife showed up, and suddenly I was labeled the biggest tramp on the planet," Tracy confessed. "I thought maybe you'd forgive me since you loved me so much. But I guess I overplayed my hand," she added. "Just a bit," I replied. "But it seems things worked out for you." "Maddie is lovely, and so young," Tracy observed. "Not as much of an age gap as the guy you were with." He was closer to our daughter's age than yours, I pointed out. Tracy blushed deeply. Do you know my parents still give me a hard time about that? And Haley didn't introduce Evan to me until they had been dating for about 6 months, and she even warned me not to make a move on him, she shared. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Or the fact that I still get approached by young men asking if I'll sleep with them? They're not even subtle. I've been hit on while standing in line at McDonald's. You're her, right? How about we hook up? Please? Tracy stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. I felt sympathy for her, but I didn't know how to respond. I escorted her back to our table, where Maddie noticed her tears and shot me a disapproving look. Tracy quickly interjected, It's not his fault, Maddie. It's mine. I got carried away. It was foolish then, and it's foolish now. Don't make the same mistake. He's a good man and deserves a good woman, now and in the future, she said. That sounds like wise advice, Maddie acknowledged. Remember, you're writing a story too, and it's up to you whether it's a good one or not. Thanks for watching and have a great day.